Yeah, so my name is Debra Gibbs. I was a foster carer approved in 1984, which makes me very, very old. But in my own defense, I was only 24 at that time. So I'm very pleased to be here. I'm very thankful to you all for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to speak. And it's a very timely symposium, from what I can tell, because of all of the lovely research that we've got, which tells us probably the state of the situation that we're in right now. So hopefully we can make some informed decisions in the future, taking things forward from here. Thank you everyone for your presentations so far. They've been very thought-provoking and inspiring, and it's been of interest to me to find out that for a lot of us, a lot of the time we're on the same page, which is nice. I've just recently launched a social enterprise called Assurance Parents and Carers, which looks at how we can put kind of a reassuring or assuring arm around not only foster carers and pre-adoptive parents, kinship carers, shared carers, and everybody else that I've forgotten in this moment, but anybody basically that is looking after social care experienced children and young people. And one of the wonderful things, I think, just recently has been the opportunity to take part in the independent review of child social care and the Case for Change, which is being chaired by Josh McAllister. And I don't know if you've been able to have the opportunity to provide your big idea. I mean, we certainly have, and that's available on our website to look at if you want to. But I think, you know, there is a sense of optimism about how we move forward from here. And I totally agree. I mean, my presentation initially was swim against the tides, please stop, turn around, don't follow those old tributaries that we've always followed for, I don't know, 40 years, I suppose, that I can remember of standing on windy street corners handing out leaflets about fostering to people that come out of the local Tesco's, or other supermarkets are available, of course, you know, because this isn't something which people wake up in the morning and just go, do you know what I might do? Today I'm going to apply to be a foster carer. It takes years, it takes friends, it takes personal experience in many cases to say, actually, I am that person that could do this work. I understand, you know, about how to be available to young people and children that I can make a difference to. And so ours is very much about recognizing that these are, myself included, people who slightly live on the edge. And what I mean by that is fostering is full of uncertainties, as we know. You know, you never know really whether or not the care plan is going to work out. You never know whether or not you're going to be able to, I don't know, even something so simple as you know, take the family to Chessington Wild Adventures because you've put in your claim to include, you know, your 2-3 fostered children, to get the local authorities' agreement and the finances involved. And that was 6 weeks ago. Do you know what I'm saying? So yeah, we are living in a life where for the main part, there's uncertainty. So the idea that somebody steps out and puts a reassuring arm around the shoulder of those people that are looking after children and young people with social care experience is, from my perspective, the whole point. And it's been very interesting today to hear more about various schemes, which we won't call the Mockingbird model, but various schemes where people are supportive of one another. I mean, one of the wonderful quotes I've got here from the Fostering Better Outcomes paper, which was presented in 2018. So let's figure here, we're talking about 4 years ago. If foster carers are to be treated with the measure of equality they deserve, they must have their voices heard, their needs met, and their development supported. Really? Yeah, like we didn't know. Of course, that's what we need. Foster carers do need all of those things. And what was interesting was that this same paper looked at the foster carers who had left the service, presumably because their voices weren't heard, their needs weren't met, and their development wasn't supported. And they were saying, do you know what? We wouldn't mind coming back and doing more fostering, but we want to do it on a part-time basis. And that leads me into this idea that actually, I know when I was a foster carer, I was looking after 3 children and young children. Well, the oldest was 14, so I don't know. And my own 3 children. And bedtimes for one of the children that was in foster care was horrendous. You know, he really needed 100% of my time and my attention. And I had another approved foster carer from the same county kind of parachute in and would come at bedtime and would look after 5 children whilst I concentrated on this one young person that really, really needed some support. You know, for him, bedtime was always like, you know, where the worst things in the world happened, and he didn't trust that they wouldn't happen in our house too. That said, of course, it took a long time, and I understand, you know, about the therapeutic side of trauma being different to parenting in general. You must, of course, recognize that. But it takes more than, you know, it takes a lot of people, a lot of effort, let's put it that way, to be able to manage that situation. So what am I trying to say here? So the idea of shared care for children and young people, potentially on the edges of care, it sounds to me like a very, very sensible suggestion, and one which I would most definitely want to support. The other side of that is I'm old enough to remember social aunts and uncles. Don't know if any of you do, but social aunts and uncles are exactly the sorts of people that we're talking about, who might have been fostering, but actually feel that it's, for whatever reason, not for them right now, and they want to be able to do something still, but potentially on a part-time basis. So I do think we've got a group out there that we could be back in contact with, as long as we're willing to listen to them. And this is why, with the Case for Change, one of our big ideas is about local audits. I mean, a national audit via a kind of a survey type questionnaire. Yes, it gives us the headlines, but it doesn't tell us in your local area, with your culture and your circumstances, why is it that you're struggling to get foster carers, that you're struggling to keep foster carers? And the question that was asked about, do we have a shortage of foster carers or too many children in care, I think is really, really relevant here. I think it's 3 things. I think we're pretty rubbish at retaining the carers that we've got. As I say, this outcomes quote was 2018. We're now 2020, and we're still losing our carers right, left, and centre because we've not done what it suggests. So there's retention. And when you look at the Ofsted data, it talks about there being 30,000. I know we can't go, oh, well, it's a numbers game, but if they're saying there's 30,000 places which are either vacant or not available, and roughly half, 16,000 are carers' reasons, they're not about, Harvey, they're not about that you can't place this child in this home because other children will find that difficult. They're actually not child related, but you've got roughly 16,000 foster care places which are not available because of foster carers themselves finding a reason which nobody knows. It's a mystery. So we need to be able to speak to them independently, because I know, having been a foster carer myself, that it's difficult to say honestly to your approving service what you don't like about fostering for them. It has to be somebody else that will feed back anonymously. And it has to be every year. We can't go, oh, do you know what, we've done that. That was so like 3 years ago, but it has to be more regular than that. It has to be, what did you say to us last year? Now let me see, has anything changed? What has happened? And then going back to the local authority or the fostering service and saying, but we told you this is the reason why you're losing that carer, because they asked about not so much greater fees, but having enough of the allowance that they can spend it. You know, as foster carers, we tend to be face to face with the children and young people, and they are, well, they're needy. You know, we say, well, of course you can go with your friends on that school trip, and then you go, fingers crossed, I'll speak to your social worker. But if that doesn't happen, then we go, oh, do you know what? I've got 110 quid. I can put that in. Now, foster carers don't need to be doing that stuff. That's not part of the job. So the whole point of my working, and I don't know how I'm doing for time. Okay. So, so the whole point of what I'm saying here is that we've got the information. We know how to retain the foster carers that we've got so as to stabilize the group. We know about that when foster carers are stable and they're enjoying the work that they're doing, then they will speak, and word of mouth is the best recruitment method ever. And we know that we've got too many children coming into the care system, but that there are people out there that would be able to be qualified, trained up, willing to work with the children, work with the parents of the children that would otherwise have come into the care system. If only we kind of concentrated some of our efforts on that. We know, don't we, as well, unfortunately, that we need to have more ears in the community because of the tragic deaths that happen. Okay, not every month, but even so, too often, much too often. And there needs to be some strength put into the communities. Now, if you've got social aunts and uncles that potentially run the local, I don't know, Scouts group, you know, that voluntary organisation will be known locally and will be able to, what am I trying to say here? Influence, if you like, the way that that local community works. I might be being completely naive, but it seems to me that you want to have a whole bunch more people that are demonstrating the kind of conscious parenting that we'd like to see, more in the community than, you know, working sort of separately with social workers when it gets to that point. Someone said to me, everything looks like a nail when the only tool in your toolbox is a hammer. And, you know, this is where we're at right now, aren't we? We've got social workers with no other options but to reach for the assessment pen, because you've got no one else available to them to say, do you know what? I know somebody that lives down your street, that lives in the next village, that will come round and just have a chat. So don't worry about me. I'll put them in touch with you if that's okay. And that just takes off the stigma, talking of which, my goodness me, the stigma of young people in the care system. Doesn't matter how much we do to make it as good as possible. I've been glued to some of the focus on video chats from the Case for Change. One of them was from previously looked after care leavers, adults that had been in care. And, you know, they were sort of saying, you know, they lived their life in fear that they were going to get found out, that they were once in the care system. Why, for goodness sake, why are we doing this to them? Why do they have to live with that fear? Why, when we could work with the families more, could we? We could, I'm sure we could. Could we stop them feeling that stigma? I mean, one of the young people that I looked after phoned me in a panic the other day and said, do you know what, Mum? She calls me Mum. A social worker came into school the other day and was questioning, was she okay? Why are they doing that? I said, oh, I don't know. Why would they be doing that? She said, do you know what? I think it's because I was in care myself and they think that she might be at risk. And I said, no, I don't think so. You know, just ask them. You know, there's nothing wrong with asking it. Oh, I'm afraid to make a fuss. So, well, you mustn't be afraid. You must ask them why it was that she, in particular, was hauled out of the classroom in front of everyone to be questioned about her well-being at home. But she didn't do that. She was too frightened to do that. She was worried. She was one of those young people that we saw on the focus on stigma that says, but I was in care, therefore I don't have the same rights as everyone else. Horrendous. And the same, anyway, I'm on the soapbox here, but the same was said about the young person, some of the young people that were on the video, about putting their name down for driving lessons, for example. I don't know if you saw this, but when the driving instructor found out that it was the local authority paying for her driving lessons, they said, oh, I'm sorry, we don't have any places. What's that all about? Come on, she wants to learn to drive. That's great, don't we all? I mean, that's what we do for our own children. So why on earth doesn't that young person have the opportunity just because they were in local authority care? It's just horrendous. So where I want to take this from this point is that we know all of the information, and we've known it for some time, about how foster carers need to be treated. That's lovely. Stabilise the ones that we've got. Secondly, let's look at how we can support families, strengthen communities, put those people that want to foster part-time back into society and create a presence, if you like, create those nosy neighbours that we love to hear about back in the 50s, that, you know, neck and twitching people. So they recognise that they have a role here to play. You know, we're all of us too frightened, which reminds me of a story of just recently, which came from somebody that I'm working with, who actually is a retired police officer, would make a wonderful social uncle, and is interested in that role. But he was out for a walk with his daughter, and saw a young person being poorly treated, and said to the person, "What are you doing? You know, don't treat him that way." And was rewarded with the barrage of abuse, as you can imagine. And you just think, well, how did ownership suddenly mean it's okay to treat this person as if they were an object? He's not an object. He's, a 7-year-old child that you're shaking furiously, saying, "I've told you not to run ahead," or whatever. No, that's not right. But the point is, he stepped up, and we need more people like that will step up and say, will say, "I'm making it my business. It's not going to happen whilst I'm around." And hopefully that will make a difference. Where did I get to? Anyway, so my point is, we need to strengthen communities. We need to audit. Do you know what? I think I started off saying that I've been a foster carer for X number of years. The point being about my being a foster carer for that many years is that I did get involved in my local association, and I did meet with the chairpeople of other local associations within our county, and we fed back. We fed back to the managers. They had, the good grace to listen to what we were saying, and they changed the way that they were working, which was great, lovely. And it made us feel that respect that foster carers are now saying that that's what they want. So asking will never hurt. Asking is a good idea. Making the difference is an even better idea. Asking on a regular basis is perfect, wonderful. So I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to hopefully answer any questions. But my point is, as a foster carer then, and as a social enterprise, and we've worked with young people, foster carers subject to allegations, and that's a whole different story, about the idea that we inquire before we move children. So yeah, I'd like to see that happen. We need to get it right more often, is really basically what I'm saying. So as a foster carer, having experienced for the last 20 years supporting foster carers subject to allegations, but now having a social enterprise which includes all foster carers, kinship carers, adoptive parents, anybody that has got a child, got experience of children that have been, that have got a social worker, basically, helping them to get their heads around both, the national standards and how to make it a family, make it feel like family. From my perspective, there's an awful lot we can do that we're not doing quite yet, that we ought to be doing. So I feel optimistic. That's really how I want to end, that I feel optimistic that we can do better and that we will do better. And that we should, there's nothing to lose. Let's give it a go. That's me done.